Imagine waking up to the distant rumble of explosions not because you live in a war zone, but because your neighbor has decided to redraw borders. A war that starts not just with boots on the ground, but with disinformation, cyber attacks, and then missiles in the night. What happens to a country when peace is shattered overnight? How do global powers, ordinary people, and history respond? This is no dry textbook scenario. It's happening in real time, and its shockwaves are being felt around the world. Russia versus Ukraine isn't just about land and politics. It's a modern war redefining warfare, sovereignty, identity, and international law. Let's unpack it all. What led to this war, how it has unfolded, its phases, consequences, and what the future might hold. The conflict between Russia and Ukraine didn't begin in February 2022. It has deep roots going back decades. After the Soviet Union's collapse in 1991, Ukraine became independent, a major geopolitical shift. Russia loomed as a powerful neighbor, and Ukraine's efforts to define its own path, culturally, economically, politically, were sometimes in tension with Russian interests. In 2013 to 2014, massive protests in Kyiv, known as Euromaidan, over a government decision to back away from EU integration led to the ousting of pro-Russian President Viktor Yanukovych. Russia perceived this as a threat to its sphere of influence. In 2014, Russia annexed Crimea, following a referendum not recognized by many countries. In eastern Ukraine, Donetsk and Luhansk, separatist movements, backed by Russia, declared independence and skirmishes escalated. The so-called Minsk agreements were attempted, but never fully held. So by 2022, tensions had been simmering for years between identity, geopolitics, NATO expansion debates, Russian security concerns, and Ukraine's desire to align more with the West. The outbreak, full-scale invasion, February 2022. On February 24, 2022, Russia launched a large-scale invasion of Ukraine, entering from multiple directions, from Russia itself, from occupied Crimea, and from Belarus. This was a dramatic escalation. Key early battles. Battle of Kyiv. Russia attempted to take the capital quickly. Initial gains near Kyiv raised fears Europe might see a fast Russian victory. But Ukrainian resistance, logistical issues, and local defense forces held the line. Ultimately, Russian forces withdrew from the Kyiv region by early April 2022. Donbass offensive. In April-September 2022, major battles in eastern Ukraine, especially in the Donbass region, with towns like Severodonetsk, Lysychansk, and Sviatohorsk being contested. Ukraine put up fierce defenses, but Russia did capture parts of Luhansk and Donetsk oblasts. Major phases and turning points. Following the invasion, there have been several phases in the war, each with its own characteristics. Stalemate and attrition, mid-2022 to early 2023. After initial advances and retreats, the front lines became more static in many places. Both sides dug in. Russia tried to consolidate control over captured regions. Ukraine sought counteroffensives. Logistics, international aid, and morale became critical. Ukraine's counteroffensives. Ukraine launched major counterattacks, especially late 2022, to retake territory in the south and east. These efforts met with mixed success. Some towns were liberated, but for many operations, gains were slow and losses high. Winter campaigns and long, grueling warfare. The harsh seasons made operations more difficult. Russia increasingly used missile and drone attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure, power, energy, water supply to weaken the civilian situation and disrupt military logistics. Ukraine relied heavily on international aid and its defense capacity, both conventional and guerrilla tactics. Disinformation campaigns try to justify actions, obscure facts, or sow division. Military strategy and innovation. Use of drones, missile systems, cyber warfare, long-range strikes, combined arms, supply lines, terrain, and weather. Modern war is not just about tanks and infantry, it's multi-domain, cyberspace, media, economy. The pace is fast, the stakes are high. Negotiations and peace prospects. As of now, no clear peace. Talks have stalled. Core disputes remain. What territories must be returned, if any? What guarantees Ukraine gets? Russia's security demands, roles of other nations. What's going on now, as of mid-2025? Russia continues to launch large-scale drone and missile assaults, particularly targeting infrastructure and cities. Ukraine's air defense remains stretched. Ukraine is trying to reclaim occupied territories and push back where possible, though advances are costly. The front remains fluid in some regions. International support for Ukraine remains critical. However, there are concerns about war fatigue in donor countries, political shifts, and how much more can be sustained. Strategic decisions on supplying advanced weaponry, training, financial aid will likely shape what comes next. Humanitarian crisis continues. Civilians in occupied or contested areas still suffer. Reconstruction, displacement, and social breakdown are ongoing challenges. Possible futures where things may go. What might happen next? Here are some scenarios, not predictions but possibilities. Prolonged stalemate. Neither side achieves decisive victory. Front lines shift slowly. War of attrition continues. Damage grows, but change is incremental. Ceasefire or frozen conflict, perhaps a negotiated truce, possibly with frozen lines, with ongoing tensions but reduced open warfare. Depends heavily on diplomatic pressure, mediator roles, and how much each side concedes. Major escalation, either through Russian mobilization, introduction of new technologies, or international spillover. Could involve more countries, directly or via aid, renewed offensives. Ukrainian gains / turning point. With enough international support, Ukraine might reclaim significant territory, especially if Russia faces internal issues, economy, morale. Similarly, if Russian supply lines or domestic stability falter, its capacity could weaken. Long-term global shift. Regardless of outcomes, the war has changed global security thinking, on alliances, on defense spending, on cybersecurity, on the risks of great power confrontations. The world may see new doctrines, arms races, or shifts in diplomatic norms. Why it matters? This conflict is not just regional. Its implications are global. It tests the post-World War II international order, sovereignty, borders, norms against annexation. Demonstrates how hybrid warfare works, blending military, cyber, information, economic tools. Shows the importance of alliances and international law. How countries respond has consequences for future conflicts. Highlights the human cost of war, civilians, displacement, infrastructure, economic disruption. Signals how nations must prepare for future wars, not only with soldiers but with tech, information control, economy, climate. Conclusion. Russia versus Ukraine is one of the defining conflicts of the 21st century. What started as a long-standing tension exploded into a full-scale war that challenges what we thought modern war could look like, in tactics, speed, technological integration, global alliances, and information dominance. The story is still being written. The costs are steep. The lives lost are many. But the resilience shown by Ukraine, the diplomatic balancing act of the world, and the ethical questions raised about sovereignty, identity, and justice make this war far more than a battle over land. It is a crucible of modern international politics. If you found this breakdown helpful, hit the like button and subscribe for more in-depth coverage of modern conflicts, histories, and what it means for the world.